So you want to play Morrigan in the jungle and you have no idea how to do it? Then this quick guide is for you. Item build. Start with Bomber's Mask. You're a jungler. First, you want to have shoes or tiny trinket. Depends on what you want to go for. Either movement speed or some early damage. It's fine. Either works for you. Really. It's your choice. Then you get a potion, health potion and mana potion. You can get 2 health potions if you want to. The relic, usually I would go for purification here simply because she's so squishy and she needs some kind of ways to get away. First item you want to finish is Shoes of Focus. Next, Pythagram's Piece, Obsidian Shard, Rod of Tahuti, Polynomicon, Soul Reaver. Especially that 3 can be changed in order depending on what you're up against and what you need. If you need more high burst damage, then Rod of Tahuti. If you need some more chain damage, then Polynomicon if you have less gold. If you're against very tanky targets, then Soul Reaver first. Second relic, choose between Sanctuary if you die too much or Blink if you want to look for initiations with the enemy ultimate, for example Ares. I know this build looks weird as hell, don't bitch about it, we'll talk about that later. Leveling order. Prioritize deadly aspects and Changeling at all costs. So deadly aspects, Dark Omen, Confusion, deadly aspects, and Changeling. And now always Changeling whenever you can. Deadly aspects first, deadly aspects again, Dark Omen because we need 1 more point and Dark Omen is pretty good. Changeling, deadly aspects, come on, hurry up here a little bit. Dark Omen, Changeling, go on. Dark Omen, we don't have much time. Confusion, I said confusion, Changeling, confusion, Changeling. Let's go, there we're done. But Duke, Changeling only decreases the cooldown of your ultimate, it doesn't actually do extra damage. Changeling is the majority of your damage, we'll get to that. Quick run of your abilities, listen up! Doomsday is some sort of magical AoE kin-size steroid on every 3rd hit. You get 9% of the target's max HP as magical damage against them. Pretty nice, but not worth completely building out focus on that. Don't build attack speed, Morrigan, it doesn't work. Deadly Aspects is your main lockdown, your main gank ability, your main everything. It does a lot for you. It is close range, keep that in mind, and it's good when you wind it up before you go into an engage. Dark Omen is your amplifier for damage, extra damage ticks. Gets procced by your 1 and your passive, so it's kind of cool, but yeah, it's kind of complicated. It works if you have a team that works with it and blah 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 blah. It's a good ability, okay? Confusion is a stealth ability and it allows you to trick the enemies by sending out a decoy. This is good to avoid Neath ults, Thanatos ults, any kind of ult that requires the enemy to land on you or aim towards you. Also, you can drop the decoy in place and then stealth in without them seeing the decoy at all if you want to. This is very smart in many situations. Your ultimate is Changeling, you turn into the enemy. That is your bread and butter because between your abilities you will hardly ever kill anyone. That's why we're not going for penetration, we're going for cooldown reduction so we can use the ultimate as often as possible. You want to kill people by using your combo and then turning into someone else and killing them that way. Sometimes you can poke them down, sometimes you can clear kills up with your 1-2 combo, but most of the time you will have to turn to somebody else, and in the beginning the cooldown is very long for that. There are 2 sorts of common engages with a Morrigan. One is stealthing in, using your Dark Omen deadly aspects, maybe using the decoy to trick them a little bit, and then just getting out after the poke. Or the other one is going in the same way, and then using your ultimate to try and clear off the kill if the enemy is low enough. That's basically all you need to do almost all the time. Right, and now 3 minutes are over and I get to take a deep breath. You can take one with me, because this was a rush. Obviously, you cannot really cover everything about the Morrigan in 3 minutes. And what we're gonna do in this part of the video is give you some extra info, some more details, go over everything a little bit slower, for those of you who wanna have that extra info. Obviously, with what I gave you before, you're basically set to go into a match and play it if you were able to memorize all of that. So the whole idea of the 3-minute guides remains. I'll explain that a little more towards the end of the video. For now, we talk more about the Morrigan. So what you want to keep in mind with the Morrigan at all times is, first of all, that her stealth is her only escape, so she is quite vulnerable in terms of how she can get away from enemies. Most other characters have either a better stealth, which has, for example, a slow clear or something like that, or they simply have a movement ability that places them somewhere else. Both is not the case for the Morrigan. Now, obviously, you could try and use Changeling to get somebody else's escape and escape that way, but ideally you want to use Changeling in a more aggressive way. So, more often than not, her basic initiates require a certain level of smart play. Place your decoy in a place where they don't expect you to be, or where you would think that they would just not see you coming up. Like I mentioned before, you can just place your decoy on the ground and stealth in, pretend your decoy doesn't even exist. It will often work better for the gank than sending the decoy somewhere into lane. And that way you already have a certain advantage before the fight starts. But then in the fight, you have no way to get out. You really have to commit. And that requires you to have very smart positioning at all times, have high map awareness, and that's part of what makes this character so complicated. Additionally, Morrigan's kit is not necessarily synergistic. If you look at it, many people will tell you, use the 2 and then use the 1. But the problem with that is while it procs more damage, more often than not, the enemies will get out after you use your 2. Your 1 has a very long wind up because you have to summon your spirits first and then send them out, and that ability has quite a bit of delay. So by the time you've used your 2 and your 1, most enemies are long gone. I prefer to go in stealth and then stun the enemy right away before they even know what hit them. Then land the 2 and try to get the second proc either of my teammates with their abilities or of my own basic attacks if the enemies stick in range for that long enough. If it doesn't work, happens, but really I don't think it's worth going in with a 2-1 combo unless there's some sort of other lockdown that allows you to confirm this combo or the enemy doesn't have an escape. The passive Doomsayer can be utilized when playing smart. It can be utilized for camp clear. You should make sure to use your abilities after the 3rd hit so you don't really waste AoE procs of that damage if you need it for camp clear. It is one of those a little bit situational dependent passives. I know there are builds out there with Demonic Grip and I see that very much being a possible option. It doesn't really work for my playstyle where I use the abilities so early in the fight. But if you want to play around that, that's possible. Just don't go full attack speed because really it doesn't work that well. 9% on every 3rd hit is not as much as it sounds on a god that isn't all too mobile and too capable of chasing for longer periods of time. With all of that out of the way, let's look a little more into the build and why I chose this path. I've tried plenty of different builds on Morrigan now. I've tried Pen Boots builds, I've tried Polynomicon builds, I've tried Talaria Boots builds, everything in between. And I still feel that this build ended up being the most efficient one. But why is that so? Because if you look at the stats, this is not a good build by any means for a magical god in general. But what you have to consider here is that Morrigan only has 2 damaging abilities. Her stealth, confusion, does not do any damage at all. And those 2 abilities don't have crazy amounts of damage. They both have 80% scaling, and up to 300 or 320 base damage, depending on if the double proc of Dark Omen gets confirmed. While this damage is good, it is better than, for example, a singular ability of Ao Kuang in most scenarios, but it's also not that good. The scaling is decent, but scaling is something that only really matters later into the game. And between the 2 abilities, you're unlikely to ever kill someone, especially if the second proc of Dark Omen doesn't get confirmed. So, outside of her ultimate, Morrigan's kill potential is only really there against targets that have already been bursted. So, obviously in a fight scenario where you're with your mid laner and you're bursting someone down together, it can work. But in many scenarios, it will not be enough. And because of that, you have to work your way around it. I originally thought that the best way to work around it was Pen Boots and then Polynomicon, because that way you get a decent amount of extra damage due to the flat pen, and you get the extra damage from the poly hit. But it was still mostly not enough to kill someone. What I realized is that if you're looking to kill someone, you should look to have the ult up as often as possible. The most accessible way to cooldown reduction for that matter are obviously Shoes of Focus, so we're building those. After that, you would have the choice between Chronos Pendant and Pythagram's Piece, realistically. Maybe Breastplate of Valor as well. I choose Pythagram's Piece because it gives you the most overall stats, and it also helps your team, which will most likely have 2 other magical characters, with you being a magical jungler, so it helps your team quite a lot. I personally am of the opinion that the extra power from Pythagram's Piece and the extra lifesteal outweighs the extra cooldown reduction on Chronos Pendant. If you prefer Chronos Pendant, that's up to you. Keep in mind that lifesteal will change in the upcoming season, so it might be worth even more in that regard. This way, our ultimate has a cooldown of 128 seconds on rank 1 and 112 seconds on rank 2, which is still quite a lot, but it's less than 2 minutes, so it's acceptable. This also means that the last rank of our ultimate will have a 64-second cooldown, which is good because it means that if an enemy has a longer cooldown on their ultimate, it won't do too much harm for us when we use their ultimate while changing into them, while ulting. Well, that was complex to say. So, no more cooldown reduction past this point. Instead, we're focusing on getting the most damage possible out of our 2 abilities. Therefore, Obsidian Shard for penetration, then Rod of Tahuti if you have the gold for it for extra high burst, Polynomicon for that extra burst with the attack swing, and Soul Reaver to chunk a decent amount of health that way. I would generally not go away from these items too much. Obviously, some people like to build raw power items, and something like Warlock Sash can be justified as well. But I personally think that high burst is good, and then just turn into someone else if you need to be more tanky. on the note of turning into someone else, make sure to use that quick store. Set your ultimate to instant cast, hold down the ultimate button, right click on the character you want to turn into, and then whenever you hit that spacebar real quick and maybe click, then you will turn into whoever you want to be right away. It's still glitched on quick cast, that's why I'm recommending instant cast. Normal cast works as well if you want to have that extra click. So that is what I think should work best. In the beginning, don't toy around too much with the switch mechanic for ultra hot plays. Try to get used to the character and herself at first, and for that, you should probably just turn into gods that you can already play that are in the game instead of looking for that ultra hot Ares pull or whatever you want to do. It can work sometimes, but in the beginning I generally find it easier to just turn into a burst god that you can already play, for example, to get some extra burst after your burst. That's it for this guide. I hope this was insightful. I hope this gave you a bit of a better overview on Morrigan. This character is very complex. I could have said a lot more. I try to bring it down to the very essence of what needs to be said. We're probably going to see some changes in the near future anyways, and I might do a more in-depth guide after that. Who knows? We'll see then. If you're just here for the guide, then thank you for watching, and I will see you for the next one. I hope you are subscribed, and if you enjoyed this and aren't subscribed, then please feel free to do so. Click the bell for the notification. And now a quick explanation as to why the video changed a little bit in terms of the format. This used to just be 3-minute videos, if you remember, quite a while ago. They were very well received back then, and it was kind of frustrating for me because 3-minute videos are not that appreciated by the YouTube algorithms, to put it that way. So everyone who saw it really liked it, but not a lot of people saw it. And by changing up the format this way, I can allow you to still have that 3-minute video if you just want to see it quickly before a game, just the 3 minutes to give you the basic rundown. And if you want to have more insight, then you can watch the rest. And that, in the end, helps me and helps the video actually get around instead of just being shown to a very selected audience. Therefore, I'm bringing in this change. It does not much for the revenue if you're thinking that's why I'm doing it. It's literally just so the video actually gets the exposure that I would like it to get. People can actually see it. With that, again, thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments down below if you like the format, how it is now. I think it's pretty nice to give some more in-depth info, especially on more complex characters. See you for the next one. Duke Sloth, out.